like your anxiety is based on the fact that you care so much about the work that you do. And so that is actually a superpower.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, your go-to place for empowering behind-the-scenes stories of trailblazing women who work in the sports and event industry. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, and I'm honored to bring you this free resource where you'll hear firsthand accounts of how these incredible women got their seat at the table. And I will personally share strategies to help develop your leadership skills in this industry. We've got a lot to explore together. I am so glad you're here. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. Eleanor, week 2, so part 2 to our series. Welcome back. I am
Thank
so
you.
glad that you're spending all this time with us. So we learned a lot about what it means to be a director of safeguarding and inclusion. It's a heavy job and it's a lot. And we talked about the mental health that comes along with that for you and your team. What I'd love to talk about in this episode is more about you and how you said something last week. You said you were nervous speaking at the Everything in Sport conference. So how did you get over that? What people don't know about me is I used to get so nervous. There are sometimes like I would just say no to things because I couldn't handle the nerves. I knew I could do it, but the leading up and the anticipation would like break me early in my career. So how did you manage all of that with Everything in Sport and speaking there, or just in general and anywhere you've been speaking?
The anticipation anxiety is real, isn't it? It's so debilitating. Yeah, actually, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I do suffer with generalized anxiety disorder. So it's something that I do struggle with. And I have a general sort of feeling of anxiety. But when it comes to public speaking specifically, that is definitely like my kryptonite. I really struggle with that, and I'm so fearful of it that over the years it's created like a panic disorder where my heart feels like it's in my mouth and I'm not going to be able to speak and I'm going to choke on my words. And a bit like you just said there about you've kind of thought about not doing something that has definitely been on my mind, but I have been sat in a boardroom before about to present and I've almost had to grab a hold of the arms of my chair because my heart is pounding so fast before I know I'm going to be asked to speak and the only thought that's going through my mind is I'm going to die. Like I'm actually going to die. And when you talk about it consciously, you can sort of feel how ludicrous it is to have those feelings. But in the moment, it is just so real and it's so there. And it's the one thing I don't seem to be able to trust myself. And I don't know how I get over this line is that when I start talking, I feel so much better. And obviously, like preparation is always key to anyone feeling comfortable. I have little things that kind of make me feel more comfortable than others. So like even just holding something. So if you feel, like if you feel like you're going to get shaky, or I like to be able to hold something, I actually prefer, strangely, to be holding a microphone because I don't know, it gives me some form of stability and kind of both feet on the floor, kind of connected to the earth, that, all these books I've read on kind of like what supports you in kind of giving good public speaking, then, I've sort of tried it all and I don't know if I will ever overcome it. I've spent a lot of my career worrying about it and fighting it. I have fought it so hard to the point of feeling physically sick. But I have perhaps in the last year got to the point where I've just accepted that this is just how my body is and how I respond and how my threat responds to this. And I just think I just have to go with it now. And I tried not to say no to anything on that basis. I was speaking in Miami was something else. It was, such a special moment and such a great achievement to be considered to do that, especially speaking alongside someone from Mega from the Jags. And I just didn't want to mess that up. And I actually, through actually doing a bit of therapy, the best thing that anyone has ever told me, and it was a psychologist at Fulham actually, he said to me, you know what, like your anxiety is based on the fact that you care so much about the work that you do. And so that is actually a superpower. And so you might not be where you were today if you didn't care about things so much. And so like, don't think of this as a negative feeling. Like you are so nervous and so anxious before you go into this. It's because it's all of those things, fear of judgment, fear of getting it wrong. But people only worry about that stuff if they care about it. If you don't care what people think of you, then you're probably not going to have the same level of anxiety. But then what does that sort of say about whatever you're trying to do in that situation if you don't care? I've tried to kind of relabel what it is. And the more I talk about it, the more I hear about what other people feel when they speak publicly. And, even on your podcast last week with Clara, and she's saying she feels nervous. I mean, come on, you look at Clara and you're like, this woman is formidable. Like, this woman doesn't have nerves. But to hear her say, yeah, I feel nervous before I go on, it's like, okay, I just need to normalize this. So normal. And I'm really keen that people know that I feel like that before I speak, because I think when I do speak, people quite often say to me, oh, you were so confident. Why? Like, you can't be nervous. And I'm like, no, I am. So I want other people to know that they can overcome it too. Yeah, just try to sort of take those opportunities, because honestly, like, from saying yes to some of these things, it's brought about sort of some of the best experiences in my life. So, you're just holding yourself back if you kind of give into it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that and opening up about that. And I don't know about you, and I don't know how long you've been in the industry, but like 20 years ago when that was happening to me, like when anxiety was just taking over, I wouldn't, there's not a chance I would have talked about it on a podcast, right? When there's no podcast back then, but you know what I mean, right? Like there's no chance I'm talking to anybody about it. And now it's all I talk about, because I just want people to understand, like, it's okay. It's normal. And what you said about just finally just saying, this is who I am. Like, I don't, like, this is it. Like, this is who I am. And I'm going to figure out how to live with it and manage it and not let it hold me back from having this great career and having the impact that you're clearly having in the industry. That's so powerful to me that you were just like, no, you're not controlling me, anxiety. Like, I can hear my heart pounding, and I'm wondering if everybody else can hear it in this boardroom, but I'm still going to go. And you're right. When you finally start talking, sometimes my voice will keep cracking and I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to keep going. But you generally, if you're prepared, you feel better. Like, when you start, you feel better.
It's really disarming when you just accept it. And, I make it, especially, I don't know if it's annoying for other people, but, before a meeting, for instance, if I was presenting, I just make it clear to everyone I'm really nervous. So I just say, like, I'm really nervous. And there's people like in the boardroom, for instance, at Fulham, who I get very sort of focused on where I need to be. I like to know what my environment is before I speak and who to focus on. And so I get on with all the directors at the club, but there are certain directors who I speak to more. And so I might say to one of them, can you sit in that seat over there? Because when I'm talking, I'm just going to face you and talk to you. And then I will say, if I sort of break at any point, like, could you interject with a question or something? Because I know that is a kind of enabler for me that will help me sort of gather my thoughts and kind of, sometimes for me, the thought of public speaking is how much I've got to say, and how much I've got to hold the floor for. And that can make me feel choked up, thinking, oh my God, I've got to get through so much. I've got to speak about everything and I've got 25 slides to get through. And that can make me feel short of breath. So I think conversational type things are much better for me. So I feel like if someone wants to interrupt me during a presentation, I really welcome that. So I would, and at times I encourage it to people. I have sort of people plotted in the crowd to say, could you, ask me this question, because that will help me settle.
Oh, I love that. I feel like you gave us a little secret there. I love that. Like,
no, I don't know if now I'm saying it feels like maybe it is a bit of a secret, but I sometimes just need that. The hardest thing for me when I'm public speaking is the introduction part. And I nearly have panic attacks when I'm on training and someone says to me, go around the room, everyone say your name and your job title. And as it's coming around the room and it's creeping up to me, even just saying my name and my job title, my heart is pounding as much as if I was giving a board presentation. Like, there's no reason to kind of necessarily why I feel so uncomfortable, but just that initial speaking part is the most difficult. So I know that if I'm introducing my presentation and I just have, let's say, 4 lines to get through before I put a question out to the audience, it just gives me even 15 seconds to catch my breath, introduce myself. This is my presentation. Does everybody know what this is about? And then, sort of just give yourself that kind of moment to take another breath. And then it's like, okay. And then I know that slowly and surely I start to sort of able to move through the presentation. But I have lots of notes in my presentation about those little breaks, just so that I always know there's a break coming up. So if I feel like I'm running out of breath, running out of able to talk, then I'm like, okay, I'm literally a second away from getting to that break. Just get to that break, ask a question. So yeah, so that is a bit of a secret that I use. So if you're ever on any of my presentations or training and you see me asking a question, it's usually because I'm at the point of like, yeah, my heart's pounding now.
Yeah, but it also makes for a good like presentation. So if you're speaking to us and like you pause, I'm gonna ask some questions. People like to interact, so
Yeah.
it's a great strategy. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing all this with us. And it's great for people to hear this, regardless of their level, to know here is a director level, like you are running a department in to me, like one of the most important departments in, in your organization. And you are also dealing with anxiety, like,
Yeah.
and like that's a major part of your life, but it's not slowing you down. So you can both things can be true. You can have general anxiety disorder and also be, a director, executive level. And let me make sure I get this correctly. Let me go to my notes here. You're the only female member of the club's management board, and then the only
Right.
director across the Premier League who holds this area of responsibility on a board level. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Whew.
yeah, Fulham they mean a lot to me because of the values of the organization. And as I said, when I first came into the sport, came to Fulham 7 years ago, and I hadn't worked in sport previously, and safeguarding was relatively unknown. And I've done a lot of work at the club to make it relatable to people. I really pride myself on making this a subject that everyone can talk about and not feel sensitive or scared to talk about. I really have seen some bad practices of people feeling petrified of talking about issues going on with children, young people, because they think they're just going to get the emergency services out, and there will just be drama. And so I make it my kind of my work to make sure that people feel that this is their business, and speaking to people in their language. So coming from a charity social work type background, I think if I'd have just come into football and said, well, this is what we do in social services, everyone in football would have just been like, this isn't social services. So it was really important to me when I came here to talk in people's languages and talking about it, what it means in a football environment. And so I had to spend a little bit of time, sort of a few months at least, trying to understand what we actually do with children here and how it's important, and then having those conversations with people on the ground around why it's important. And then another thing, I was listening to Clara at the Miami conference actually, and on her podcast, where she talks about mentorship and sponsorship. I've been so fortunate for them that my boss has been nothing other than a great sponsor for this area. And so it's really not been that difficult for me because he's been such a believer in it. And he's had my back at board, and he's given me that step up to go to board and present and speak to the club's directors on safeguarding and why it should be important to them. Now, boardrooms are historically made up of number crunchers, lawyers, and that is really why they're male dominated. We don't have social workers sat at board levels, not in this country. So for me, being a female that represents an area of social responsibility, I think is particularly difficult. One, because I'm female, and that brings about its own difficulties, but I'm also responsible for an area that some people just don't consider to be operating at board level. But what I'm really proud of at Fulham is that they have accepted that this is absolutely board level responsibility, and we need strategic direction with this. We need to understand how to work with the next generation of young players and how we can get the best out of them, because if we don't, we're going to get left behind and we're not going to have good players in the future. So speaking to the board in that language and turning what I do, something that's notoriously sort of social in its responsibility, into number crunching and kind of litigation or mitigating litigation, that then, if people start to see that as like, oh, okay, she's managing risk. That's all she's doing. She's managing risk. And that's what most people at board levels are doing. They're trying to stop money leaving the organization and bring money in. I don't necessarily bring money in, but I definitely stop money leaving through any of those other issues. And I think like being able to turn this subject into that language helps get your voice heard about why it's important to a football club to have someone at that operating at that level.
Ooh. Hey, Game of Thrones listeners, Jahaan popping in here. Do you ever feel overlooked at work, or perhaps unsure how to advocate for yourself? You are not alone, and it's exactly why I've created a free training called Empower Your Career, Mastering the Art of Self-Advocacy for Promotion and Raises. In this training, I will teach you tactics like how to have meaningful interactions with your leadership team, how to increase your confidence. And there's so much more. You'll walk away with the tools to confidently seize control of your career growth. So, what do you think? Are you ready to stop being overlooked and start being noticed? If you are, the link to sign up is in the show notes. Let's elevate your career together. All right, let's get back to the episode. Now, tell me this. Anxiety shows up for you when you're speaking. We understand that. When you made that like jump from part-time to full-time, and I imagine you had to like advocate for yourself and
Yeah.
and show why that you need to be full-time. Does self-doubt or anxiety show up? Did it show up there as well?
Yeah, definitely. I never kind of expected to feel the doubt that I did coming into football because it was such a new area. It didn't have anything to go on, so I was just leading the way, and there was no one telling me really, no one showing me how to do this at a football club. So I just had to go with what I thought was the best way, and yeah, the self-doubt and the kind of, I think, going back to what I was saying around not being someone who processes numbers, who is a lawyer, is an accountant, is a commercial sales executive. It's like I'm the pink, fluffy, kind of side of the organization, and how can I make this respectable? And it came, but I did doubt it, but it did come, and I just kept trying, and doors did keep opening. But I think it was because of the effectiveness of the work that I was doing, and people could see that it was working. And where and if you get complaints or issues are coming up, and you're able to present like where you've done everything and there's nothing else you could have done in that situation, I think all of a sudden people are like, okay, yeah, we're feeling protected, we're feeling that this team is actually really supportive for us. And yeah, I guess then it just came about. And I think to be honest with you, my boss probably had more belief in me than I had in myself. And so really only through his sort of constant kind of, I mean, he has tested me over the years. There has been plenty of times where he has told me reports not good enough, they need to be better standard, and I've gone away and I've worked all night on something. And we've had these conversations since around kind of how, it's at the time that feels really hard when your boss is telling you that you need to do better at something. But actually, I feel like the same with my team now, in that, there's nothing worse than indifference. If your manager is being indifferent with you, do they actually care? And for me now, I understand that that was all care, and it was like, I want you to be the best you possibly can. And so I think all of that was sort of helped me be as successful as I have been, and having that advocacy from him as well. So I still have it now about whether I should be here. But funny enough, only last month or the month before, there's another Premier League club who has now advertised for a safeguarding director. And that was the first time that I actually felt a bit of validation, because I was like, okay, like other Premier League clubs are now going for this. Like, it's not just me, it's not just chance. Like, I think, or maybe I've just been lucky here. Like, but yeah, I think that helped give me some validation.
Wow. So you built a role that didn't exist. Like you
Yeah,
came in and they only wanted part-time focus to
yeah,
start. Then you painted the picture of why you needed more.
yeah.
And it sounds like with the help of your boss who saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing, and we definitely probably haven't got time to go into this side of it too, but my other side of my role, so I'm director of safeguarding and inclusion, and the inclusion side of things, that was about 20% of my role when I first started. It was like, yeah, can you do a couple of campaigns on anything to do with, I think in the States it's D&I, DE&I, and that was a really small part of my job. I have a whole department now on inclusion as well. So that was another part of kind of like, actually all of this stuff's really important. My colleague Jamie, who's in my team, he has absolutely completely changed the way that we operate around EDI, and how we've made EDI everyone's business. And I think my strategy was basically just the same as safeguarding when I first started taking on EDI as well. It's like, right, how do we make this everyone's business? How do we make this part of everybody's language and vocabulary during the day, rather than everyone just being like, oh yeah, Black History Month, let's go to the EDI team. It's like, now we have teams coming to us saying, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And And we're like, wow, like this is so cool that we've now got people who are just in any department across the club are just coming up with initiatives for Ramadan or Women's History Month or International Women's Day. Like it's so nice to see it's spread. And I think that's because we've made it safe for everyone to talk about this stuff and ask questions. And they come in our office and they're like, what do you think about this in the news? And we've just made it kind of everyone's business. And yeah, I've taken the same approach with EDI as I have safeguarding in that respect. Two very sensitive subjects, I think.
Yeah, that's incredible work to spread that through your organization and not demand that they embrace it, but motivate them, inspire them to embrace it and run with it as well. Like, so it's just not you and your team; it is the whole organization. Like that's a beautiful thing, and people try to aim for that. And I've been part of organizations that have tried to aim for that, and it is no easy task. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I know we're almost at time. I feel like we could ask, and I say we because I feel like the audience is like literally right behind me, could ask you 1,000 questions about the work that you do, but we'll stop and we'll go to the final sprint. So we're at the end. Five, hopefully easy questions. And first thing that kind of comes to your mind. You ready?
Yep, let's go.
All right. What's a goal you achieved that initially you weren't sure you could reach?
Do you know what? Like, I'm a bit of a funny one. I don't think I've necessarily really ever had like a goal, which is a bit sad, really. Like, I've just kind of taken opportunities as they've come. And I think if I think about it now, like, my parents would definitely say that if you'd have told me 10 years ago that I will eventually become a director of a Premier League football club, that would have been beyond my imagination. And so, yeah, the fact that I'm here now operating as me, because I didn't think maybe I could get to where I was because of sort of the young, anxious person that I was, is pretty good.
Yes. All right. What's your go-to pump up song?
So I'm quite eclectic with my music taste. I'm a 90s music girl, unashamedly. Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, R&B, like that is my vibe. So I think I would go with, if I had to though, driving to work in the morning, one of my favorite songs to put on is Mariah Carey and Fantasy. I just feel like when the sun's out, like that's windows down, that's my vibe.
Yes, good, good. Ooh, good choice. You're taking me back. Okay, what's your favorite way to unwind after a busy day?
Yeah, I mean, as discussed, my job's a bit tough. So again, kind of guilty pleasure really is just getting home. I have a little fur baby, a little dog, just wrap him in his blanket, me and him cuddle, and we just watch trash TV, really. I think I could say, I go to the gym and I work out. Like, I do go to the gym. I keep myself healthy, but to be honest with you, the best way of winding down is watching absolute trash, and just completely switch off. And I'm not ashamed to say that.
Now, like, do you consider Love is Blind
Yes,
trash?
yes,
Yes.
that's where I'm at. Love is Blind. I've just finished the reunion show. I've watched every single series
Yes.
of Love is Blind.
Me too. I cannot believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe how obsessed I've become with that show.
I
And
know.
season 6, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, you need to watch it. It's the best season yet.
I don't know what season that I have then. I mean, I finished just before we came to Miami actually, and I'd got it in my head. I felt so familiar with these people that I was going to meet them when we came to America. I was thinking, I'm just going to see these people when I come over. But yeah, Love is Blind. There's a few of us. There's a few of us at the club. A few kind of male coaches as well. It's funny. Like we have catch ups on some of this reality TV stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
Love is Blind is great. I don't think we have a UK version of that. The American one's good enough. Love
Yeah,
it.
I think there's a Brazilian version too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
also recommended the Swedish one to me.
Oh.
Yeah, said that it was apparently quite tasty. So
I love that
we also,
description.
I know we have Married at First Sight as well, which the UK one's okay, but the Australian one highly recommend. Big dramas in the Married at First Sight one.
Oh, good to know. My husband and I love that. Same as you. Easy way to unwind. Okay, what's one thing that makes you laugh out loud?
Do you know, I think being in this job, like we laugh all day in the office. Like my team are absolutely amazing. We have difficult days, but we actually do have the most fun. And if I really wanted a reliable source, I just have to go to my dog because my dog is probably just his little characters. And I mean, I've had him for 6 years, but I could still just watch him all night. I just find it hilarious, like what he gets up to and kind of just thinking about what he's thinking about.
We're very similar. What kind of dog do you have?
He's a little Frenchy pug. Do you have, are they
Oh.
called pugs in the States?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he's a rescue. We got him 6 years ago. So he's got his demons. He's a good boy.
That's exactly how I'm going to say it about my dogs from now. They got their demons because my dogs do. Boy, I never know what to call it. I call them annoying, but demon sounds so much better. All right, last question. Name one woman in sports who inspires you and tell us why.
There's so many. There's so many just because of the opposition they face, I think, in the industry. But I think it feels relevant to talk about the England goalkeeper, female goalkeeper Mary Earps. She's also a Man United player. We won the Euros a couple of years ago now and was in the World Cup last year, I think. Time's whizzing by. She's particularly important, I think, because as a goalkeeper, traditionally, Nike have never sold the goalkeeper shirts in shops. So it's been tough enough to get women's football shirts selling in sports shops as it is. Shocked actually in the UK when it was coming up to the World Cup about how hard it was to get hold of a female shirt, given that we'd won the Euros. But it was impossible to get the goalkeeping kit because Nike refused to sell it. And after a number of sort of private conversations with Nike that Mary Earps had, she decided to go public with her concerns around Nike refusing to sell her shirt, and they were refusing to sell it because they didn't think that they would sell it. And then there was a petition where I think over 150,000 people signed the petition. Nike eventually gave in, put the shirts for sale, and they sold out the quickest they've ever sold a goalkeeper shirt. All units sold. And as a woman in sport, a woman as a goalkeeper, a woman who has won the European Championships, to have to say to global brand Nike, please put my shirt in the shops. Young girls in this country were desperate to wear that kit, and they weren't able to until she sort of took that publicly. And I think, it just goes to show that, again, it's not about, for women, we're not just being challenged with how we play on the pitch, but it's all that commercial stuff that we're having to get involved in. The boys' game just does not have the same challenges. You don't have to, the male players do not have to challenge Nike to get their shirt in the shop. So as women, we're just taking on every part of the industry. And so for me, although she might not be that familiar in the US, she is our goalkeeper for England. And yeah, I think she's pretty special for having done that.
And say her name again.
Mary Earps.
Mary Earps. Okay. We're going to link to her in the show notes. In the global brand, did you say Knights or Nike?
Nike, sorry. Nike.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was like,
Nike.
I think she's saying Nike. Let me make sure here.
Nike.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of interchange between Nike and Nike, but yeah, Nike. Yeah, so the national team's kit, yeah, they just refused to put it in the shops, which is, and actually at the Inter Miami conference, it's really interesting listening to some of the females talking around kind of females and their potential commercial value in terms of how much merchandise women buy and how much more we buy than men, and how basically we're like a multi-billion-pound industry that most sponsorship commercial industries have just not recognized yet. Hidden market.
It's a hidden market. It doesn't seem like it should be this difficult, and that we're still having these conversations. Whew.
Yeah,
here
definitely.
We are.
Exactly. It's and I have, sorry, I know I'm probably going on a bit. I have to say as well, just on the female sort of inspiration, we've just had a movie released over here called Copper 71, and it's about the lost World Cup, and it's around females in 1970 in the UK who were asked to go and play in the New Mexico World Cup. They went and played, but it was actually illegal in the UK in 1970 to play football here as a woman. And when they got back from the World Cup, they were banned. And it was the headlines of the newspaper that they were banned from playing football because they had essentially just broken the law. I haven't been to see the film yet, but the trailer looks amazing. And although sort of probably quite heartbreaking. And so it's always my go-to when people are like, oh, the women's game's so rubbish, it's not as good as the men's. It's like, yeah, we've been playing for 50 years. You've been playing for hundreds. It was actually illegal for us to play football within most of our parents' generation. So people don't always understand the oppression we have faced in sport. So yeah, and we're learning all the time. As a woman, I'm learning too. So Yeah, it's
What's the name of
interesting.
that film? I did not know this
Copper.
story.
So it's Copper 71. I can send you the link.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
capital COPA 71, and it's yeah about this English team, and they'd lost contact with all of the women who played in that World Cup, and honestly, I was batting away with tears when I was reading the BBC article on it because I was reading it to my colleague Jamie, and it said, "Can you imagine?" Because they took I think one of the team members was 13 years old at the time. Can you imagine being 13 years old and coming back to school and not being able to talk about the fact you've just played in the World Cup because it was illegal for them to do that? And I was literally, as I was reading it, I was just like batting the tears away because I just thought that is the saddest thing I've ever heard. Like, as a young girl going back to school and not being allowed to talk about the fact you've kicked a ball because it was illegal, like makes me mad.
That's, oh, so angry. Like, and just like, you can't understand why someone, like, why? Like, you just
Yeah.
can't understand why such a rule is in place. Like, women in the US couldn't have their own bank account until, like, I
Yeah.
forget what year, but like
Same,
somewhere in the
yeah, it's the same. Yeah,
70s. Yeah.
it was 75 here. Yeah,
Yeah.
you couldn't have a bank account, you couldn't have your own home until it's 75. Like that, that's like you couldn't go to Cambridge University until similar time. Like, and the day that women were allowed to go to Cambridge University, the men marched around the city in funeral outfits and coffins because they obviously just thought it was the end of the world that women were allowed to go to university. And that I think it was the year after that, two people were nominated for Nobel Peace Prizes. They were both women. So it's just
Oof.
like as you get older and you hear some of these stories, it's so important because, sometimes you can feel like, I don't know if I have ever been sort of disadvantaged for being a woman, but the more I read, the more I'm like, oh no, I need to fight this.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's exactly right. Eleanor, this conversation, I mean, I say this a lot to my guests, like we could talk forever, but like literally we could do like a 5 day, like master class, and you be the host. Like it would be incredible. This has been such a great conversation. If someone wanted to get in
Thank you.
touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, so yeah, Eleanor Rowland, LinkedIn. It's good for me.
All right. Well, thank you for donating so much of your time for this. We all appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and yeah, thank you.
Ladies, now it's your turn. I want you to take action on what you heard in the past 2 episodes with Eleanor. These 2 episodes with Eleanor have been so empowering. I'm grateful for you and for me that she opened up about her battle with general anxiety disorder. As she was sharing her story, all I could think of was all of you out there who are also impacted by anxiety. It's wild. Anxiety can be something that derails your career if you don't manage it well. If you try to ignore it, it will manifest in a way that knocks you off your feet. I know because it's happened to me. I ignored anxiety, mainly because I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't have a name for it. I ended up in the hospital several times and the doctor's office countless times trying to figure out what was wrong. Nobody knew. Anxiety just overtook me. My anxiety said, so girl, you're not going to listen to me? Well, I'm going to do something to make you listen. But imagine just for a moment, if we had the right tools from the start. I have them now, and so does Eleanor. As an executive in sports, she carved out strategies to keep her anxiety from steering her off course. So whether it is placing a trusted colleague in the audience when she openly admitted she was nervous, or engaging the audience with questions so she can give herself a quick mental just break, Eleanor's tactics are effective. They are effective for her. So I pose a question to you. What steps can you take to manage your anxiety? Maybe it is just vocalizing your nerves before you start. Maybe it's refining your preparation process or altering how you begin your day. For me, working out before the sun rises was a game changer. So I urge you to take a moment to reflect, identify at least one actionable step you can take to manage your anxiety. Start with one, and as you feel the benefits, consider adding some more. It's about building a toolkit for you. It's your own playbook. Build it piece by piece, and that will help you have a more manageable, fulfilling career. I want to thank you ladies for spending time with me. It is not lost on me that you have so many choices out there. Could you do me a favor? Share this episode with another woman. My goal is to empower as many of us as possible and remind women that we are capable and we are worthy of achieving our dream career, of earning a seat at the table without letting anxiety hold us back. Together, we can elevate each other. So thank you for sharing this episode with another woman, and thank you for listening. I am so glad you're here. All right, my friends, until next week. In the meantime, it's your turn. Go out and continue to take action.